The reality is that it's the consistency over time that's going to help people know, like, and trust you. It's the same game as in-person networking if you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
Getting
Mm-hmm.
people to know, like, and trust you, and hopefully you as a person are a trustworthy person, and you're doing business right, and you've got a great product to offer.
The Business Owner's Journey. I'm Nick Berry, and I've got real business owners telling their real stories, sharing their real lessons and strategies so you don't have to figure it all out on your own. Daniel Wakefield is a founder, photographer, and entrepreneur, and now a published author. How do you turn $60, a camera, and determination into a six-figure business that keeps clients chasing you? Today, we dive into the frameworks, mindset, and momentum behind Daniel's rapid rise. Expect to learn how he jumped from $60 in month 1 to six figures by month 12. How and when he knew he had to write a book. How the hype tornado turns happy clients into nonstop referrals. What the accelerate equation really means for your network and revenue. How to use LinkedIn without posting cringe sales pitches. Whether in-person networking still beats cold DMs. His take on packaging expertise into high-margin coaching. How to keep momentum when your creative energy dips. The best and worst ways to spend ad dollars on social platforms. What a killer product plus unforgettable experience actually looks like. And much, much more. Enjoy this interview with Daniel Wakefield. So the book is out. Congratulations
It's
on
out. Yeah,
Accelerate.
thank you.
It's out. So where's it at right now? Where can you get it?
Yeah, so people can go on Amazon and grab a copy. They can get an ebook, paperback, hardcover. Should be up on Apple Books, kind of wherever you get your ebooks. Typically, should be on there. But yeah, it's available. It's go time.
Awesome. And it's Accelerate. How I took my creative business from 0 to six figures in 12 months.
That's the one.
We're going to talk about some of what's in the book, but like why the book? What
Yeah.
prompted you to go down this path?
Yeah, so I was just working on my business, growing it, and just learning everything that I could, and it was doing really well. We had we were crossing the $250,000 a year mark in revenue in the business already, which is like top 1% of photographers in the country. It was pretty big deal. And I was part of some photography groups on Facebook and other places, and some of the groups were just very open about sharing about business stuff, wanting to encourage other people. And the owner of the group really encouraged people to share their wins and how they were doing, so that people who were newer to photography could see just what was possible in this industry if you do things right. And so I played along and was sharing about the wins and trying to give credit to people that I thought had really helped me as well. And I just started to have photographers reach out, and basically their first question was, "Can I pay you to hop on a quick call and just pick your brain about how you're doing business and how
That's
you've
how I
grown
got
from
started.
that?" Yeah.
Like 20 years ago. That's how I got. Yeah, that's a very familiar story.
Yeah. So at first I was like, sure, and it was a great conversation. And being a former high school teacher, being able to take ideas and really distill them down into frameworks and big ideas, and then how to take those ideas and implement them, and apply things into certain situations, was kind of like what I learned to do as a teacher, and now I was just applying it to in a business sense. And so some of those people were calling me back a month later, 2 months later, saying, "Hey, can I pay for another call? What you said was working, and I'm getting more clients, I'm making more money, and I want more, going basically to dive in deeper into some of those business concepts." And so this started happening again and again and again. And so I started to think about, well, should I be more strategic about this? Should I be doing something to actually attract more people? Obviously, there was a need for what I was talking about. And so I was thinking about it, talking with my wife, Bethany, just trying to think through different things we could do. And I just thought to myself, well, I've always loved writing. Ever since high school, I entered creative writing competitions. Enjoyed putting my thoughts down on paper, and I thought, well, let me just take all the things that I'm teaching to these people on these phone calls and kind of put it down. And each topic could maybe be a chapter of a book, and then just kind of weave my own story into it of, where did I start from with the business, and what were the things that helped me to get to that six-figure mark in the first year. And yeah, and so I just really dove in. And so part of it was, obviously there was a need for help in this industry. There's other people doing things as well, but uh, clearly there was still a need. People still had questions that they wanted answered, and so it's was partially a, how can I help type of thing. But then also just from a business perspective, just thinking about, there were clearly people willing to, pay money to hop on a call to just learn more. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was an opportunity to just think about, for my own business, could this potentially be another revenue stream that I can be more strategic about, and in doing so help a lot more people with it. So
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of those, you know, dual purposes, if you will.
Yeah. On top of you enjoying writing, this is a project that you would have enjoyed doing, even if it didn't have
Yeah,
a business purpose, right?
absolutely.
I've spoken highly of you in front of you and behind your back, as a matter of fact. But you know what you're doing. You're really good at with the teaching, distilling down the learning points, all the things that you said. How much of the appeal to the people that have been coming to you do you think there is to, like, they want somebody who's actually done it? Like, is that really the irreplaceable factor that you speak to it from a first person experience?
I think that's one of the things that's really drawn a lot of people to me. If I was just some guy showing up and say, "Hey, I can teach you how to do this," then it's like, well, but can you?
Yeah.
There's maybe a little suspicion. But when people see, oh, not only did he get six figures in his first 12 months, but then went on to multiple six figures and stuff like $50,000 a month and things like that, people are
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, yeah, I want to learn what this guy's doing. So I think that's part of it. I think it's just, um, it becomes kind of the authority of experience,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's not just a, because we're in a day and age where everybody is wants to be a coach and is calling themselves a coach and things like that. And we've talked about this before. And to me, I think it's so important that that coaching is undergirded by a foundation of, I actually did it. And so when I teach you these things, I'm confident in them because I have seen them work for me, and they continue to work for me. They're not just things that I talk about, but they're things that I actually do every single week.
There's also a component to your story that's, I think it's to six figures in 12 months, and the first month was $60. Was that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
it's like from $60 to six figures, which is, I think, makes it relatable, because it's not just a pure wins across the board. It's, I was at this low point and it is pretty close to the bottom,
Yep.
and then went to here. Like, I think that counts for a lot in the
Yeah.
eyes of those people.
And it wasn't, it was the first month was $60. And the months after that were, comparatively speaking, quite a bit more than that, but still like not enough to rely on as a sole provider for my family. I think maybe month two was like $2,500. Month three was like about 4,000. Actually, the next 3 months were about 4,000 each. And some of those were like zero income for the first 3 weeks of the month.
Mhm.
And then a whole bunch of bookings on the last week that was just like, okay, we've got some income. We can breathe until the next month. So it was kind of like touch and go, really,
Mhm.
for about the first 6 months uh, before things really started to hockey stick, as they say.
So
um,
what clicked that made things start to hockey stick? Because I think that's probably like that's where the framework for the book started to come together, right? It's like you figured out how these things needed to work
yeah, and it
together.
was, yeah. And to be fair, like I didn't even realize. I knew some of the things that I was doing, and I was doing them intentionally, but I didn't fully understand the impact of how I was doing it. Um, and so it, it just things started to click, and it was kind of looking back, um, from uh, the future, looking back, that I was like, okay, I did these things, and really figured out the framework from there.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was two of the main things were in-person networking and LinkedIn, kind of as an overflow of this networking concept. And the two things together really started to click, and really had what I would say is a compounding effect over time. It wasn't something that you could just say, well, let me try this for a month. Oh, I didn't get any clients that month, I guess it doesn't work for me. But it was more of a persistence of doing the things, learning from people who were doing it well, and then modeling that in myself, and going and doing more of that. So yeah, those two things really started to click. I think it was maybe 2 months of work on LinkedIn before I got my first client from the platform. And it was somebody that I didn't know. I just kind of had randomly connected with, and then they needed some commercial photography done. And I was like, I'm your guy.
Mhm.
And then it just kind of started to slowly trickle in from there until it started to really snowball after that. But it was kind of one of the things I saw people doing on LinkedIn, and I just noticed that it wasn't working at all, is people who were making every post into a sales pitch for their business. And it was like, if I translated that to me, it would basically be like, here's 5 reasons why you should do your headshots with me, type of thing.
Mhm.
And it would have zero engagement on their posts, and just not getting any traction at all. And it would be like day after day or week after week, I'd be seeing their posts, no engagement on them. But nobody, like, it was impossible to get to know that person either
Mhm.
from that post. And so I just started to think about, how do I not do that? But if I'm not doing that, what am I doing? What am I posting about? And getting some insights from some other people, and then putting my own spin on it, and really just starting to post and figuring it out as I went along was so, I think, pivotal. A good friend of mine in sales, he says that your first 100 posts are going to be bad, and because you just don't know what you're doing, you're learning, but it's through posting, through putting in the effort and showing up, that's how you learn. Like going to the gym, you're first time you ever go to the gym, you're not good at anything. Your technique is bad, you can't lift very much, you don't know what you're doing, and you're just looking around at all these like bodybuilders, and you're like, I don't even know.
You
I
think
wish I could
everybody who's not
continue.
you is
Yeah,
like a bodybuilder, right? It's like everybody else is an expert, and I'm the
yeah,
only one here who's my first day, which is totally not
yeah,
true.
yeah, for sure. But so it's like showing up and committing to just doing it, and then learning from other people around you as well. And I started to intentionally follow some people that weren't even in my industry, but they just seemed to be having good traction. So I was kind of looking at, well, what are they doing? And then how can I apply that to my industry? So now when I talk with other business owners that are just kind of wanting to learn more about LinkedIn stuff, even if they're not in my industry, I'll tell them, go and like look at my posts for the last couple of months and get some ideas, because I may be posting from within a certain industry, but the things that I'm talking about or the types of posts that I make are broadly applicable to a lot
Mhm.
of different business owners.
And you have, I think it doesn't take long to see with you, like there's kind of, you've got a set of these types of posts that you do. You figured out the things that work for you that are you're really good at and you have plenty of material for, and you do those things well. Is that fair?
Well, thank you. Yeah, yeah. There's definitely things that I like to think about, and also the other thing I would say is that everybody wants to have a post that goes viral. Everybody wants to have that one post that just takes off and gets thousands of likes and comments and whatever. Um, that personally, that has never happened to me. I did have a client that posted her headshot that went kind of viral. It got like 5,000 likes on LinkedIn, hundreds of comments, and it actually did bring in a fair number of clients and new connections and things like that for me, which was wonderful. But personally, I've never had a post go, strictly speaking, viral. But I still have gotten to within 4 years. I started with 2 connections on LinkedIn. So,
Mm-hmm.
pretty hard to be lower than that. And then within 4 years, like I'm just about to hit the 14,000 follower mark. So, network has grown exponentially. Um, I get a
I mean,
ton of
your
clients
strategy
on
is
the
not
platform.
about, it's not about going viral, or like
No,
it doesn't, you don't need to go viral, right? It's like you're
correct.
doing something that's sustainable. You're not playing the lottery.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where, if you're thinking with every post this needs to go viral, I think what's going to happen to most people is that it's going to paralyze them. They're going to
Hmm.
like overanalyze every post, thinking like I got it has to be perfect if it's going to go viral. And the people that are actually going viral, I don't think are doing that. They're iterating, they're ideating and iterating and putting out tons of content, and then seeing if something goes viral, maybe what they can learn from that and apply to new stuff. But they're not like just sitting on a post forever trying to figure it out. The
Hmm.
reality is that it's the consistency over time that's going to help people know, like, and trust you. It's the same game as in person networking if you do it right,
Hmm.
getting
Hmm.
people to know, like, and trust you, and hopefully you as a person are a trustworthy person, and you're doing business right, and you've got a great product to offer and things like that. Those are all, I think, givens. But given that that's the case, people need to know who you are.
Hmm.
And that was kind of my thought when I started my business was, nobody knows who I am. So how do I go from this state of being completely unknown in the business community to being a known entity that people know, like, and trust? And so some of the things that I talk about in the book are, how do you get from this like unknown place to somewhere where people do know, like, and trust you?
Hmm. Okay. What parts of that can you share here?
Yeah. So I think foundationally, the accelerate equation that I came up with. And just, I guess, real quick, as I was writing the book and thinking about this concept of, um, to summarize it, it was uh, business acceleration through genuine connection. And that kind of became the overall theme. But as I was going along, I'm a very visual learner, and when I see something, it just helps me process the information. So I started thinking, wondering, could I come up with some sort of visual for this main theme of uh, business acceleration through genuine connection? And being a former science teacher, I immediately thought, well, acceleration is a physics term and it's got an equation. I wonder if I could come up with an equation just that's more conceptual, but at least gives us a visual of 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 this concept. So I sat down and I started just kind of pen to paper and just scribbling out some stuff and figuring it out. And so what I came up with is that it is an equation. It's acceleration equals number of connections times felt relationship divided by misaligned values times market irrelevance. So number of connections and felt relationship is on the top of the equation, divided by, and then you've got misaligned values and market irrelevance on the bottom. There's a reason for all of that. So number of connections is easy. It's just the number of people in your network, whether it's on LinkedIn, people that you know in real life. And so that's pretty easy to quantify. Some of the other things are not necessarily quantifiable. It's more conceptual than that, but I think that it still provides a powerful analogy. So felt relationship, for example. Obviously, we want to have real, genuine connections with as many people as possible. But that gets capped pretty quickly. I think I had read somewhere that you can only have like 200 authentic friendships or something like that. Once you start getting beyond that, it's like almost not possible to. We just can't do it as human beings. There may be exceptions, but for most of us, once we get beyond that, it just starts getting into the realm of acquaintances, people who maybe know about us, and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
Um, so the whole point of the felt relationship on the top is that as your network grows, if it starts to get big enough, there are going to be people that are connected with you on LinkedIn or maybe know about you in your network in person, but it's just not possible to have a genuine friendship, business relationship with everybody. It's just we can't do it. And so I thought about, well, then what's the point? Why would you ever want to have a network of like 10,000 people on LinkedIn? And so what I started to realize was you may not be able to have a genuine relationship with each of those people, but they can have a felt relationship with you. And so if you start putting out content that really help people to know, like, and trust you, they may have never met you before, but they may still have some semblance of a felt relationship because they're enjoying following along on your journey, getting to know you, learning about how you're helping people. One of the most common things that I hear when I go to a in-person networking event and I meet somebody and they say, "Oh my goodness, you're Daniel. I follow you on LinkedIn." And they follow that up. Almost everybody says this. "I feel like I know you." Right? And
Yeah.
so so that means that was working, because they felt comfortable enough to come up to me, to introduce themselves, to say something like that. And if the time was right, if they were like actively looking for headshots, guess whose door they'd be knocking on?
Mm-hmm.
Because they feel like they know me. So that felt relationship, the felt part is intentional, because as your network gets bigger, again, not possible to have 1,000 friendships that are active, but you can still help people know, like, and trust you. So number of connections and felt relationship. And then on the bottom are things that you want to minimize. Okay, the top of the equation, you want to maximize those things. Bottom of the equation, you want to minimize them. The whole reason for that is because, like, just for example, 1,000 divided by 1,000 is still one. You could be doing really good on the top, but if there's mismatch and if there's like a bunch of misaligned values or market irrelevance, it doesn't matter how big the numbers are on the top. It's going to cancel out on the bottom. So the bottom numbers are ones you want to minimize. Again, still pretty conceptual. We're not like plugging in actual numbers here to get a number result, but just to help us visualize what we're trying to do. So the misaligned values, I think you're just looking for people that are kind of on the same wavelength as you, ethically, with things like integrity and trustworthiness and things like that. But then also other things like people who are growth minded, people who have what I would call, quoting some other great authors, a go giver mentality, and things like that. So you're looking for people who you're on the same wavelength with your personal and professional values, but then also the market irrelevance piece. And so, just kind of as a silly example, if you're trying to build a community of dog owners and you just go and connect with all the cat owners out there, it doesn't matter that you have 10,000 followers if they're all cat, people, but you need to build a community of dog people. It doesn't matter how big your network is.
Mhm.
And so you're wanting to make sure that as you build your network, yeah, of course, there's going to be people that you meet and potentially become friends with that are not ideal clients, and maybe or don't even work with your ideal clients and things like that, and that's fine. But in terms of just being intentional, growing your LinkedIn following and things like that, making sure that uh, the people that you're connecting with have some sort of relevance to the market you're looking to build and work in, and make offers to and help and things like that. So
Mhm.
if we can get those numbers as small as possible on the bottom, it really increases the effectiveness of those numbers that you're trying to increase on the top. And so I think that just speaks to, if you're trying to grow a following on LinkedIn, what kind of content are you posting about that would potentially attract people who would be in that correct industry. But then also when you're just going and sending connection requests to people, you're maybe doing some searches, like, just be intentional. Don't just be shooting out things, willy-nilly all over the place, but really take some time to think about who are my ideal clients, or who are potential strategic partners and things like that, because it'll really have a massive impact on the effectiveness of those connections.
Mhm. So let me see if I can recap this back to you. The effect that your network can have on the your business's acceleration is going to be determined by the number of deep, quality, genuine relationships that you can have, and the number of people who have a positive familiarity with you, who also have aligned values or mindsets, and have some overlap in the problem that you solve. Like you create some value in that world for them.
Yeah, I would say that's a great recap. And my book does actually have a visual of
Yeah.
the equation. So you can see it. You don't have to imagine it. You can get the book and see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's helpful, right? It's all of that distilled down to something that pretty simple, that like, Nick, go do this.
Yep.
And you said the word intentionality. I think that's really what it does. It lets you be really purposeful with your activity. When you were talking about LinkedIn, but it's not exclusive to LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
But that purposefulness or that intentionality is what gets lost a lot, and we can waste a ton of time and energy and just being willy nilly. As another phrase you used, I think was good. So we've got LinkedIn and the accelerated equation, and we've touched on the in person networking, and so let's talk. This all is kind of forming up the hype tornado, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about
Yeah.
the hype tornado.
Yeah. So the it's another framework that I came up with while I was writing the book. And I came up with that one first, actually, before I came up with the accelerate equation. And when I came up with the accelerate equation, I was like, I don't want them to be two separate things. Like, I think, I wanted to see, do they actually fit together? And I think they do. And so the hype tornado was a concept that I came up with because I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was saying, uh, Daniel, you're building so much hype with your business. And we were talking about why that was. because I was in the process of writing the book and thinking about I want to teach other photographers how to build a business like this, and realizing like one of the things that I've been doing is building hype for my business. And I think people are really excited about the headshots, the photography that I'm producing for them. But I felt like I think it's more than that. And I wasn't like trying to put my finger on it. And so this conversation with my friend Nicole kind of clarified some things in my mind about what I was doing and why it was having so much impact. And so over the next month or so, I came up with this framework, and I started to think about. I had this idea in my head of, a vicious cycle, and which is obviously a negative feedback loop. So it's two or more things working together that make things worse and worse over time. And I was like, it's like that, but it's positive. And there is a positive version of that. It's called a virtuous cycle. And I was just like, well, that's kind of boring. It sounds kind of clinical. And I wanted it like it is that, but I wanted to have like a specific term for it when it's in this specific case. And I immediately just thought of a tornado, and I was like, light bulb, it's a hype tornado.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the inception of that idea. And when I boil it down, the hype tornado concept is really about creating FOMO for your business. It's like creating magnetic attraction to your business. So it's not just like finding clients doesn't just feel like pushing a rock uphill all the time, but people are like lining up, like they're showing up in your DMs, and it's like starts to be more managing inbound inquiries than just like cold outreach and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And so I started to think about, well, what are the elements of a hype tornado? And what I've come up with is that a hype tornado is made up of not three pillars, but three environmental conditions that need to be kind of functioning for a hype tornado to form. So the first one is you have got to have a killer product or service. Mediocrity is not an option. It cannot be something that your clients are just satisfied with. It needs to be something that overwhelms them, something that they feel like they're getting more than they paid for. So that's really like the foundational thing. If you don't have that, it's never gonna start up. It doesn't matter how good everything else is that I talk about. If you don't have the killer product or service, forget it. So that has to be there. The second thing is you have to have unforgettable client experience. And again, same thing, cannot be mediocre. It cannot be something that's like, it was pretty good. It just needs to wow people. Be
Mm-hmm.
something that like they are never going to forget this.
Mm-hmm.
And really diving into like, how does your experience and your product, your service, how does it make people feel when they come and they work with you? That's huge. It's all about that. And so my book goes into some of those more specific things that I think we need to help people feel in order to achieve that. So that's super important as well. And then the third environmental condition, I'm very committed to this analogy, this weather analogy. The third environmental condition is I'm calling it a social presence that adds value. And this could be on LinkedIn, this could be on Instagram, this could be in-person networking. All of that sort of falls under that umbrella. But it's essentially having a go-giver mindset throughout all of your social presence. And that it's not just about, hey, it's all about me, come and like buy from me and I'm the best and yada, yada, yada. But it's like, how can I, through my social presence, add value, make connections, help other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big part of that. And the interesting thing is that the more I've thought about it, the more I've realized that even if only one of those environmental conditions is missing, it's going to stall out the hype
Right.
tornado. There's going to be something that, even if you have the killer product and the unforgettable client experience, if you're missing the social presence that adds value, it's really eliminating part of it that like it does accelerate, because that's where the accelerate equation fits in, is into the social presence that adds value. It fits into that section of the hype tornado. So if that accelerate part is missing, like you're gonna get some clients, you're gonna get some word of mouth referrals, but it's not gonna snowball, I don't
Right.
believe,
Right.
which is really what we're trying to do with the hype tornado.
Hmm.
And then, so we've got those three environmental conditions, and then um, this this kind of developed over. The more I think about it, the more deeply it develops. But I started to realize that the hype tornado, it has an eye of the storm. It has a center of everything that everything moves out of, and that center, that eye of the storm, is that we are helping people see their future self through what we do. So doesn't matter what it is that you do, it becomes about more than just providing a great service or product. It becomes about client transformation,
Yep.
which it really should be true in any business, no matter what you're doing. Even something, a good friend of mine, Karen Ross, she's an accountant, and she said she'll tell you like the most boring, like in some ways, people view it as the most boring job out there, but she really focuses on helping her clients transform to have peace of mind through what she does. And when you market it like that, it totally changes the game. You're not just like, oh hey, I'm an accountant and I'm just gonna do your taxes for you. No, I'm gonna step in, and through all the things that I do, we're going to bring peace of mind to your life. That's huge.
Yeah. For
That's
most
so
people,
much
that is a
better and so much
transformation.
bigger, and it hits right here instead of oh, taxes. I don't even want to think about that. So that becomes the center of the hype tornado. The eye of the storm is this focus on transformation, and that impacts every part of the hype tornado. So
Hmm.
it kind of emanates outwards. And yeah, when you've got all of those things functioning and happening in your business, like watch out.
Hmm.
And then you're going to need your help to help like get more efficient so you can manage all the inbound that you've got coming in.
Then you build the machine so you can do a
Yep.
lot more of it.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, what you're talking about is systematically making the whole greater than the sum of the parts. When you get all three, that's when it becomes like the flywheel or
Uh-huh.
I love the virtuous cycle. Conceptually, it makes sense. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what we dream of.
Yeah. And if we
When,
go back to kind of what we both talked about with this concept of just being intentional in our business, that if we start to recognize the importance of focusing on client transformation instead of just, hey, let me provide a good product or service, how do we focus on client transformation in all aspects of our business? That just allows us to, again, increase the intentionality that we bring to each of those things and gives us a higher target to aim for, rather than, oh, for me, oh, I clicked the button, I took a good picture, therefore my job is done,
hmm
versus how do I help this person transform in front of my
hmm
camera? Because ultimately that's going to be the thing that impacts them more, which then impacts your business more because they want to go out and tell everybody about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love your philosophy. I think it's being able to, you have a fantastic service. It is best in class headshots. And it would probably be pretty easy for somebody to deliver that product and think, that's the top of the mountain. That's job well done and be very proud of it. And there to those who do that, that's fine. But I admire the way that you've taken it several steps beyond that to this is not just an image like a digital image of someone that is really well done. It is like changing the way that they view themselves for the better, and it does it like we're not talking about the exceptions here. We're talking about everybody who goes through Daniel to get their headshots done. They have this experience, and it's incredible. Having that effect on people is a really powerful thing, and you're leveraging that to continue to expand and affect not just the people who get headshots, but also people who are trying to build photography businesses, and then people who are just in creatives and who are trying to build businesses. And now with the popularity, like there are people coming from all types of businesses to Daniel, show me how to do this better on LinkedIn, or Daniel, what are some of the things, getting business advice from you. We haven't talked about it today, but your coaching program, Accelerate Coaching Group for photographers, like that's off the ground and running, but like it's not going to stop there, because the things that you're teaching are so impactful for business, not just for photography businesses. You're building a hype tornado around that, right? Like it's going to attract people, and it should. Like I've coming from the business space, we need more of that perspective. So I think you're doing a fantastic job. I think you've got a fantastic mind for this stuff. And thank you for sharing everything. And
Of course.
congratulations
Yeah.
on the book, on number
Thank
one, because
you.
I know we're not finished.
Oh, we are not. We are just getting started.
Well, thanks, Daniel. I appreciate you being here, man.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found the show valuable, you can say thanks and show your support simply by taking a quick second to like, share, and comment on the show. You can also find more information about each of my guests, all of the resources from the show, and myself at nickberry.info/TBOJ.